Ang dino, maghrib.
The movie begins in Surabaya, 1998. A woman named Tika is seen heading to her apartment. Upon entering, she notices severe water leakage from the ceiling. Frustrated, she goes to the reception and complains about her apartment 510 to the owner Woolan, saying she's tired of reporting it. She asks Woolan to check the apartment directly above hers on the 6th floor, but Woolan tells her that the 6th floor is off limits and no one's allowed up there. She promises to call a technician the next day, but Tika isn't satisfied. Fed up with the inaction, Tika decides to go up to the 6th floor herself. She finds the floor locked, but determined to resolve the problem, she breaks the lock and enters. She finds the apartment directly above hers and goes inside. As she looks around, she suddenly hears a woman's voice ask, "Who is it?" When Tika responds, "Is someone in there?" the voice replies, "Miss K, just come in." As Tika reaches for the door, it opens by itself, revealing a woman and a young girl inside. The woman says, "4 days, sunset." Terrified, Tika flees. Tika is later seen telling everything to her sister. She says that ever since that night, she feels like someone's been following her. She got locked in a warehouse, felt someone pull her while swimming, and now, today, being the 4th day, she's terrified. Yun tries to calm her down, suggesting she take her pills, saying maybe it's all just hallucinations. She tells Tika to take a bath and says, "Then we'll eat." At around 6 in the evening, Tika heads to the washroom. She opens the bathtub tap and starts brushing her teeth. Suddenly, hands emerge from the bathtub, and a woman and a girl rise out of it. The lights flicker, and Tika sees them in the mirror. Startled, she turns around, but no one's there. She hurries and sees their reflection in the water again, letting out a scream. Hearing her scream, Yun rushes in and finds Tika's body brutally cut into pieces. Horrified, she screams. We're then introduced to Alma, a woman struggling to keep her restaurant afloat. One of her employees reminds her they also need their salaries, acknowledging her need for money for her mother's treatment and sister, Mia's education. Alma reassures him they'll be paid this month. Just then, she gets a call and rushes to the hospital, only to learn her mother has passed away. The scene cuts to the funeral, where a man named Rayan consoles her. Later, Rayan suggests Alma move to Surabaya, where he's posted, so he can support her. Alma asks, "What about the restaurant?" He replies, "It's not working anyway." He acknowledges the place's emotional value, but tells her you and Mia need to survive. Surabaya is a comfortable city. You can find work and start over. Alma insists she still has a lot to handle. Debts, hospital bills. Rayan offers to help and says, "When we get married, I promise we won't be like your parents." Later, Alma calls Rayan to tell him about a job opening at Sasmaya Apartment in Surabaya. Rayan mentions he's been investigating a murder and mutilation case for over 2 weeks. The victim was a resident of that same apartment, though the crime happened at her sister's house. Alma remains firm, saying the salary is good. Rayan reassures her that the area is safe and the apartment itself is nice. He also shares that if he solves the case, he'll be promoted and they can finally buy a house. Alma says her only priority right now is Mia. Rayan agrees and asks her to let him know when they arrive, so he can pick them up and take her to the apartment. The scene shifts to Alma and Mia in Surabaya, escorted by Rayan to the Sasmaya Apartments. They're welcomed by the owner, Woolan, and her husband, Amin. Rayan joins the conversation and tells Alma that he has been there before for an investigation. In the elevator, Woolan explains that only the 1st to 5th floors are in use. The 7th to 12th floors are unused, but they're trying to market them again. Alma then asks about the 6th floor and Woolan replies that the 6th floor is damaged and off limits. They are shown to their room room 301. Woolan Amen, who stay in 305, offer help if needed. Woolan then informs Alma that she and her husband are going to Madian and will return the next day. She adds that if they need help in the meantime, they can reach out to the other staff. With that, the couple departs. Alma then asks Rayan about the investigation. He explains that 4 years ago, there was another victim mutilated in the same way. There were no tool marks, no fingerprints. Strangely, the limbs appeared to have been pulled off, not cut. The victim had been a janitor at the Sasmaya Apartments, but like the recent case, the mutilation didn't occur on site. They had interviewed Eamon, Woolen, and all the staff, but no one knew anything. So far, there's no evidence linking the apartment, Ryan says. But if you notice anything unusual, tell me immediately. Later, Alma hugs Mia. Mia asks if Rayan has left, and Alma nods. Mia urges her not to leave him hanging as he's been waiting for 3 years. Alma responds that she just wants to be absolutely sure he's the right one. She picks up a photo of their parents. She doesn't want what happened to their mom to happen again. Mia reminds her that their mom had said it's hard to explain why their dad left. He changed into someone she couldn't even recognize. Remember? She called an ustad and a psychic, and both said he was taken by something supernatural. Alma snaps. That's just what she said to cover for him. He cheated on her, she adds. I just want to focus on my responsibilities. Taking care of you, Mia says, so you can think about me. But I can't think about you. I want you to think about your own happiness too. If you're not serious about Rayan, you should let him go. I feel bad for him. Meanwhile, as Rayan tries to uncover the identity of the murderer, his phone rings. It's the doctor. She informs him that the victim's sister has finally spoken, for the first time since the incident. Trembling with fear, she keeps repeating the same fragmented phrases. 4 days, sunset, Miss K, over and over again. In the meantime, a man complains to Alma about a recurring ceiling leak in his apartment. She accompanies him to check it out. Inside, we glimpse his daughter, Preeta, before he leads Alma to the bathroom and points out the leak. Suspecting the source is on the 6th floor, he adds that the next door unit, once occupied by Tika, the woman who was mutilated, had similar issues. They check Tika's apartment and find an even worse leak in her bathroom. The man says he's leaving town tonight and won't be back until next week. I just don't want my place flooding. The camera pans up to the 6th floor, where a bathtub overflows with water. Then Alma asks an employee for help, but he says he has to go home and leaves. Mia arrives, mentioning she's joined the dance studio. Alma asks her to come along. They head to the 6th floor, but find the door locked. Mia tries to stop Alma from breaking it, but Alma insists if we don't fix this, it could flood downstairs. She then starts hitting the lock with a hammer and eventually breaks it. They enter the 6th floor and find the room above Tika's. They open the door and step inside. As they look around, a voice calls out, "Who is it?" Alma replies, "Who's there?" The woman answers, "Miss K, just come in." They open the door and see a woman and a girl. The woman says, 4 days, sunset. Mia screams and pulls Alma out. They rush back to their apartment and lock the door. Alma says she'll tell Miss Woolen tomorrow, and Mia suggests informing Rayan too. The next morning, Alma enters her office and accidentally drops some paper clips. When she looks down, she sees they formed the number 1. Just then, her colleague tells her the technician won't be coming today. Unit 509 will be fixed tomorrow. Alma suggests checking with the cleaning staff, but he says they haven't arrived either. She asks him to send Ray into the unit as soon as he arrives. When she looks back at the paper clips, the number is gone. We then see Mia in her dance studio when her teacher, Rini, arrives and explains the masks are for the Malangan mask dance. Rini tells Mia to wait as the other students haven't arrived yet. As Mia leaves, Rini senses something strange. Meanwhile, Alma is seen entering apartment 509, noticing a leak and wet footprints on the floor. She finds Preeta in the kitchen and asks why she's not with her father. Preeta quickly rushes into a room. Alma overhears a woman talking to Preeta inside. The woman calls out, "Miss Alma, just come in." Cautiously, Alma opens the door to find Miss K and a girl. Miss K asks, "What do you think of her hair?" She suddenly twists the girl's neck. Alma screams as the head drops. Miss K growls, "I'll cut you to pieces." Alma screams and runs out, colliding with Ryan. He asks what happened, and the scene shifts to Rayan in apartment 509. He checks and finds nothing. Outside, there's a crowd. Rayan takes Alma inside, but she sees no one. She says, "I saw a woman and a girl here. Miss K. 4 days, sunset." The scene cuts to a crowd gathered in the lobby. Miss Woolan and her husband arrive as a man complains. This place is haunted, pointing toward a shaken Alma and Rayan. Eamon manages to send the crowd back to their apartments, then approaches Rayan. Rayan asks about the woman and girl in apartment 610. He insists, "This must be connected to the mutilation case. If you refuse to talk, I'll go to that unit myself, and if I find evidence, you'll both face the consequences." Eamon finally reveals that apartment is haunted. 4 years ago, it was occupied by a mother and her daughter. They moved out, and days later, we heard they died in a car crash. After that, a cleaner went in. He claimed a woman called him from the washroom. He saw something and came to us, saying he'd seen a woman and a girl. She told him, 4 days, sunset. Eamon continues, 4 days later, he went home. In his bathroom, he saw them again. As he tried to escape, the door slammed, half his body outside, half inside. The girl pushed the door, cutting him in half. "We heard he was mutilated," Eamon adds. "We called a well-known psychic from Banyuwangi. He tried, but failed. He wouldn't even touch the doorknob, said the presence was too strong and warned that anyone who enters will die on the 4th day, at sunset. That's why we sealed off the 6th floor. Since then, the hauntings stopped." Rayan replies, "This makes no sense." Eamon says, "It's the truth. We covered it up to protect the apartment's reputation." Alma says, "We need witnesses. Where's the psychic from Banyuwangi?" Woolan answers, "He passed away." Rayan insists on investigating the apartment, but Alma stops him. She then leaves to pick up Mia from the studio. As she goes, Rayan says to Eamon, "Take me there." They head to the 6th floor. Rayan walks toward Unit 510, while Woolan and Eamon keep watch from a distance. Rayan enters the apartment and switches on the lights. They flicker and sparkle. Suddenly, he hears a voice. "Who is it?" He calls out. "Who's there?" A woman responds, "Miss K. Just come in." The door creaks open on its own. Inside, he sees Miss K with a girl. She says, 4 days, sunset. Rayan panics when he checks again. There's no one there. He cautiously steps further inside. The tap turns on by itself and water starts overflowing. Terrified, Rayan runs out, shaken with fear. Meanwhile, in Mia's studio, the lights begin to flicker but soon stabilize. She continues her dance practice. Suddenly, she notices her reflection in the mirror isn't moving in sync with her. She turns to check, but everything appears normal. As she resumes dancing, her reflection suddenly turns to face her. Startled, Mia starts to run, but the reflection calls her name. She turns and the reflection begins to dance. Mia is horrified. The reflection lifts its leg, and Mia's leg rises involuntarily. Then her leg twists unnaturally, and she collapses in pain. The lights flicker again. Mia sees Miss K and her daughter step out of the mirror, hands smeared with blood, and slowly approach. Just then, Alma arrives at the studio. Hearing Mia scream, she rushes in with Rini and finds Mia in a state of utter panic. Alma tries to calm her and holds her tightly. The scene cuts to Rini tending to Mia's injured leg. Rini then shares someone has been following Mia, a woman and a girl. She explains, "I can see the unseen, but I can't help you myself. However, I know someone who can. His name is Mr. Sukmo." Meanwhile, Rayan asks Woolan for a copy of the mother and daughter's IDs from Unit 610. Woolan replies she doesn't, but recalls their names, Nuri and Nidia. They lived there briefly before moving to Purwokerto, where they later died. Rayan insists on checking the archives. Just then, there's a knock on the door, and Alma and Mia arrive. Rayan tells Alma he visited the apartment to trace the disturbances, but says he'll explain later and leaves for his office. Alma informs Woolan that a psychic named Sukmo is coming tonight. Rayan instructs his team to review car accidents in Purwokerto from 4 years ago, focusing on Nuri and Nidia, believing their deaths linked to the Sasmaya case. That night, Sukmo arrives and is taken to the 6th floor. As they move down the hallway, Sukmo begins chanting incantations. When they reach Unit 610, he stops, sensing a powerful energy. He says, "I can't communicate with them directly. The only message I received is that anyone who enters this apartment will die in 4 days, at sunset." He He explains the spirits have unresolved issues that must be settled to free them. To do that, he needs to read their past using a medium. Alma asks, "What's a medium?" Sukmo replies, "It's anything they once owned, something they once cherished. Find it, and I can help." Later, Alma receives a call at the office. It's Mia, asking her to come to the swimming pool. As Alma leaves, Rayan enters and begins questioning Ayman. At the pool, Alma finds no one there. She calls Mia to ask why she called her, but Maya denies it. Suddenly, Alma hears the sound of water splash. She turns and sees the two written out with flowers floating on the water. As she's about to leave, a loud splash stops her. She stops and moves towards the pool. Just as she turns, someone pulls her in the pool, trying to drown her. Alma manages to resurface, but is dragged under again, and then she loses consciousness. Mia arrives at the pool, looking for Alma, and sees her emerging from the water, wearing a mask. Alma steps out, drenched, and begins dancing eerily in front of Maya. Terrified, Mia watches as Alma suddenly lunges, grabs her, and hurls her into the pool. Underwater, she strangles Mia. Two girls nearby witness the chaos and rushes for help. Rayan and others rush to the scene. Rayan dives in, pulls Mia out, then goes back for Alma. He brings her to the surface and performs CPR. Alma suddenly gasps awake. Mia, still shaken, whispers, "The Malongan mask." The scene cuts to Rini explaining the masks to Mia, Alma, and Rayan. She tells them the mask Maya saw represents Dui Sekartaji, a princess from the ancient Kadiri kingdom, known for her beauty. Her eyebrows are drawn in a single stroke, her nose is sharply defined, and a gold ornament sits between her eyebrows. Mia asks, "Can the gold ornament vary from mask to mask?" Rini nods. "Yes, it can. If you want to learn more, you should speak to my friend, Mr. Sugang. He's the artist who created these Malongan masks." Rayan asks if they can meet him. Rini replies, "Yes, but his house is quite far and secluded." Then we see Mia handing a sketch of the mask to Alma. Alma hugs her gently and says, "Take care of yourself." We then see Alma and Rayan traveling to Sugang's village. After a long journey, they arrive and introduce themselves. They show him the sketch of the mask. Sugang asks, "Where did you see this?" He then tells them that he did make the mask, just one, on the request of Kusum Devi. He tells them that she is the richest and most respected person here. A woman approaches her and says, "Mr. Sugang is here. It's about Jeng Kanti." Kusum immediately refuses to meet him. The woman returns and tells Sugang she won't speak to you, especially if it's about Jeng Kanti. Alma asks, "Who is Jeng Kanti?" The woman replies, "She was Kusum's only daughter, a beautiful dancer. Her favorite was the Malongan mask dance. Kusum loved her dearly and was so proud of her. She even asked Sugang to craft a special Dui Sekartaji mask for her, with a unique decoration above the eyebrows. Jeng Kanti wore the mask often in performances, until one day, Jeng Kanti met someone who made her fall in love and got pregnant. Kusum asked her what she saw in that poor guy. She asked her to get rid of the baby. She cursed her if she preferred that man over her. Until death, her life will be difficult. Jeng Kanti begged her to accept the relationship, but Kusum disowned her and cast her out of the house. The woman says she never returned. To Kusum, she no longer exists. She even burned all her photos. She told me to throw away all of Jeng Kanti's belongings, but I couldn't. I kept everything. I believe she'll come back one day. Alma asks if they can see her things. The woman takes them to a room. She shows them Jeng Kanti's performance dress. Alma asks about the mask. The woman retrieves it and hands it to her. Alma studies it carefully. She asks, "Can we borrow this?" Alma and Rayan are then seen driving back with the mask. Alma says, "Maybe my father didn't just leave us. Maybe something supernatural took him." She places the mask back in her bag. Suddenly, she notices a truck speeding toward them. She warns Rayan. Rayan tries to swerve, but the truck crashes into them. Their car tumbles off the road and plunges into a ravine. Meanwhile, Mia jolts awake. A knock echoes through the silence. She opens the door to emptiness, then sees something haunting and screams. Alma wakes up, injured. She turns to Rayan and tries to wake him, but he doesn't respond. Stepping out, she notices a black cloth tied on her hand and a masked woman dancing nearby. Suddenly, the woman pulls the cloth, tearing Alma's hand. She screams in pain. The woman then wraps the cloth around Alma's neck and breaks her head. Alma jolts awake in a strange house. She sees the number 3 on the wall, but when she looks again, it's gone. Just then, a woman enters and tells Alma she's treated her and her friend. Spotting Ryan, Alma rushes to him and hugs him. The woman says, "The Almighty has given you life again." Ryan asks about their bag. She returns it, and Alma checks the mask inside. At that moment, a man arrives and tells the woman to gather her belongings. He needs to send other supplies to Surabaya. Ryan quickly asks if they can go too. The man agrees. Ryan and Alma then arrive at Sukmo's house and tell him, "We've found it." Sukmo begins reciting incantations, asking the mask to reveal its past. Suddenly, the mask fuses to his face. He's pulled into a terrifying vision, witnessing a horrifying past of Kanti, where she and her daughter were brutally murdered. Sukmo snaps back to reality. They were murdered and mutilated in that apartment. Kanti and Kirani, the mother and daughter. They won't stop killing until we find their murderer. Alma asks, "Didn't you see the killer?" Sukmo replies, "No, but it's clear it was a man." Ryan immediately suspects the husband. Back at the apartment complex, residents and staff are evacuating. Alma and Ryan arrive. Alma tells him about the accident and quickly asks, "Where's Mia?" Wulan replies, "In her room." Ryan says, "There were murders in Unit 610. Kanti and her daughter, Kirani. So who are Nuri and Nidya?" Eamon replies, "Nuri and Nidya lived there. Who are Kanti and Kirani?" Alma presses, "Do you know who the husband was?" Wulan says, "Since they moved in, it was only the 2 of them." Ryan asks, "Did any man visit them frequently?" Eamon says, "No one we ever saw." Sukmo then reveals a sketch. "Have you seen a place that looks like this?" Eamon asks. "What is this?" Sukmo replies, "This could lead us to where the bodies are buried." Ryan quickly calls his colleague, Chandra. "Go to Karangmulyu village. Ask Sum Devi, Kanti's mother, about her son-in-law." Alma says, "The bodies must be in Unit 610. Wulan interrupts, "There's no way." Eamon adds, "If there were, we'd smell something." Alma insists, "Then let's go check." Then they all go to the 6th floor. They split up. Ryan instructs Alma to look for any rotten smell or follow Sukmo's clue. As they search the apartment, they suddenly hear Sukmo's voice. Ryan finds him in the bathtub and tries to wake him, when suddenly he's struck from behind. Alma rushes in and sees Ryan unconscious on the floor. Just then, Eamon and Wulan appear. Eamon hits Alma and she collapses. He says, "Don't ruin this apartment's reputation." The next morning, Alma regains consciousness and finds herself tied up. Ryan also wakes and struggles against his restraints. He manages to smash the toilet seat. Meanwhile, Chandra arrives and asks Wulan if Ryan is there. She lies. He's gone to Purwokerto with Alma and Mia. When Chandra asks why it's so quiet, she replies, "The residents are away. The place is being cleansed of supernatural forces." Then Alma sees the number 4 on the wall as Ryan cuts through his ropes with a shard. He removes the tape from his mouth and breaks the door glass. Quickly, he frees Alma. Suddenly, they hear Mia's voice and rush to her. They free her and she hugs Alma. Alma replies, "This isn't just about protecting the apartment's reputation." Ryan adds, "They know the truth. Even the crash. They're hiding something." Elsewhere, Wulan yells at Eamon, "Why did you tell Ryan about that unit? What if someone gets suspicious?" Eamon replies, "No one will. What matters is, they all must die by sunset." Ryan and Alma find Sukmo and hand him the mask. Sukmo pleads to Kanti, "Reveal the truth." The mask fuses to his face once again. He sees the past. It's revealed Eamon was Kanti's husband. He used to call her Miss K with affection, promising her a better life. But over time, he grew violent and used to hit Kanti. One day, Kanti caught him kissing Wulan. Furious, she confronted them. Eamon attacked her. When Kirani tried to protect her mother, he struck the child fatally. Then, he hits Kanti. She fell onto a glass table, bleeding heavily. The next day, they placed both bodies in the bathtub, opens the tap water, drowning them. On the 3rd day, Eamon brutally chopped them into pieces. On the 4th day, they put their body parts in a bag and sealed it behind the walls of Unit 610. Sukmo snaps back to reality. Eamon is her husband. Wulan was his lover. They tortured and murdered Kanti and Kirani over 4 days. Their remains are hidden behind the walls. In that unit, he collapses, dead, before finishing his sentence. Ryan says they need to tear down the wall and asks if there's a tool they can use to break it. Alma suggests, checking the warehouse. They exit the 6th floor and rush toward the warehouse. Meanwhile, Chandra's colleague informs him that he's currently with Kanti's mother and that Kanti's husband's name is Amen. Just then, Woolan sees Rayan and the others heading to the warehouse, and Chandra enters the premises. Rayan and the others reach the warehouse and begin searching for tools. They find a hammer, but suddenly they hear a voice and start to run. Unexpectedly, Amen shoots and Rayan is hit. An intense fight breaks out between Woolan and Alma. Alma and Mia manage to escape. Meanwhile, Rayan fights Ayman. Woolan follows Alma and Mia, eventually catching up and stabbing Mia in the palm. Another fight erupts between Alma and Woolan. Woolan overpowers Alma, but Mia throws a cloth over her. Woolan stabs Mia's leg, and Alma kicks Woolan before escaping with Mia. Rayan and Amon are still fighting when Rayan hits Ayman with the hammer, and both of them collapse. Chandra arrives and tries to help Rayan, but Amon shoots Chandra. Amon then points the gun at Rayan, but the gun is out of bullets. Rayan strikes him and throws him aside. Alma and Mia arrive. Rayan helps them sit and ties cloth around Mia's injured foot. They all head back to apartment 610. There, they sit Mia down and successfully decodes Sukmo's clue. They move the Almira aside, and Alma notices the sun is about to set. They start breaking the wall, but both gets extremely exhausted. Alma sees it's nearly 6 p.m. and desperately continues hitting the wall. Suddenly, the door slams shut and strange, supernatural events begin to unfold. Then, Kanti and Kirani's hands emerge from the bathtub. They both rise from the tub. Kanti says, 4 days, sunset. Mia is suddenly dragged toward them. Alma screams. Kanti and Kirani start pulling Mia apart, but just in time. Rayan and Alma manage to break through the wall and pull out a bag. A skull falls from it. Kanti and Kirani stop and drop Mia. Mia returns to Alma, and they all embrace. Kanti and Kirani hold each other's hands and transform into their true human selves, smiling before vanishing. Next, we see Woolan entering the warehouse and finding Amon lying there. She tries to wake him up. Suddenly, wet footprints appear, and Woolan is dragged away, strangled, and lifted into the air. Then, Kanti appears and snaps her head off. It falls to the floor. Amon screams and pleads for forgiveness. But Kanti and Kirani grab his hands, tear them apart, break his legs, and finally, Kanti grabs his head and snaps his neck. The scene shifts to the forensic team and police photographing and collecting the bodies. Then, we move to a graveyard where Alma is laying flowers on Kanti and Kirani's graves, while Rini places rose petals on Sukmo's grave. Rini says, "Mr. Sukmo is now at peace." Mia asks, "Did you see him?" Rini nods. "Yes, also earlier I saw a man. His name is Hendry." Alma asks, "Our dad?" Rini nods again. "He's happy now because you finally believe he didn't betray you. Now he can reunite with your mother." Rini narrates, "Everyone whose unresolved pain has been healed can finally rest in peace. But not Kanti and Kirani. They will no longer kill, but they still cannot leave. Something remains unresolved with Miss K's mother. As long as she cannot accept them, even in death, their spirits will linger in the apartment." Based on the true story of a haunted apartment in Surabaya. Since then, apartment residents have often seen the figures of Miss K and her daughter wandering around. Frequent sounds of crying are heard at night. Objects move on their own, and people experience possession. The apartments were eventually abandoned by their residents one by one and are no longer operational. With this, the movie ends. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.